जय हिंद दोस्तों, मैं हूं मेजर मोहम्मद अली शाह। सबसे पहले तो आप सबको मैं हैप्पी एयरफोर्स डे विश करना चाहूंगा और मेरा बहुत बड़ा सौभाग्य है। आई फील ट्रूली ऑनर्ड एंड ब्लेस्ड एंड प्रिविलेज्ड टू बी in conversation with a very, very renowned, illustrious former Air Force officer who needs no introduction at all. We all know him as a very brave, very illustrious Air Force officer who's had an extensive experience in the aviation sector, apart from the Air Force as well. He's got two very dynamic sons. Both are my childhood friends, I would say. I've had the honor of knowing him even before I was a teenager, for that matter. And he's had a very illustrious career in the Air Force. He has been the first and the only uh, Category A1 helicopter pilot. He's been an instructor. See, we will come to that. We'll come to that. It's something, a lot of surprise waiting in for you. But let us hear straight from Wing Commander B.S. Singh Diosa. Sir, Jai Hind, and thank you very much for taking your time, sir.
Not at all. It's a pleasure talking to you. And,
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, first, let's start from the very beginning. What inspired you? What motivated you to join the Air Force, sir?
Oh, okay. Well, early childhood started reading books on aviation, and that's how I think I got motivated and joined NCC, started making aero models. And then, when I look back now, I can see that there are certain times when fate also plays its role. And I thought someday I'll join the Air Force. I did my higher secondary +2 and I joined college. And I thought I'll finish BSc and then let's see what we can do. And that's where I just met someone who said, I'm preparing for NDA. I said, what's NDA? And then I got to know what's NDA. So I went to Cuttack. That's where my college was. And I went to the recruiting office there and I asked Havildar Sahab, ये एनडीए क्या है, कोई फॉर्म भरना पड़ता क्या? He said, I've got the last form left with me, take it and fill it. And that's how I got into NDA. And well, after that very interesting phase in flying training, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to fly the Canberra bomber. All those dreams from childhood were there. But when we had this trifurcation during our training stage, people are diversified into fighters or transports or helicopters. It so happened that I was fourth in the course, and the first went to fighters, second to transport, third again to fighters, fourth to helicopters. So I had no choice. I came into helicopters, and I thought, well, that's kind of a not a first-rate thing in the Air Force. But having come to helicopters and started flying, I realized there's there is a bigger challenge in flying and operating helicopters than what I had imagined. It's an unstable platform. Like you hold a pencil at one end and hang it, it's hanging down, it's stable. You disturb it, it will settle down. It will swing like a pendulum a couple of times, settle down. But a helicopter is like holding a pencil in your fingertip and it's making it stand on your fingertip. It's trying to fall off all the time. So you are doing this bit of a exercise all the time to make sure the helicopter is under control, and then you do things like formation flying, like flying in difficult terrain, flying up to the limits in altitude, and doing special exercises like sling load operations and winching operations. So it's a very high demand exercises. So there is a bigger challenge also in helicopters. I realized that, and I was very happy. Okay, I've got into a stream as required by the Air Force, and that's how I went on.
Sir, you have always, or you have also been an instructor, and many people who have trained under you, they swear by your name even till today. And you were the instructor A1. I mean, it's for our viewers to understand. I mean, the technicalities. I, being an army person, I also do not know the technicalities. To make it simple, sir, could you just throw some light on that, please?
Okay, like any cadet, I think he starts thinking of his instructor as a role model. So I also thought of so, and I said I must become an instructor. So I went to the flying instructor school while still as a flying officer, and then I became an instructor. What happens is when you pass out of FIS, you become a C category instructor, and within 12 months you have to upgrade to B category, or else you lose your instructor rating. That most of us do. So I did that, and from B category to A2, about 10% of the instructors do it out of their own interest. So I did that in the HT2 fixed wing aircraft, and then did some good instructional experience I piled up. Nice to hear that my pupils really think that I did a good job. So that's nice. And then at one stage, soon after I did my A2, and I was posted to Bangalore to aircraft and systems testing establishment, where I did a production test pilot's course, became a production test pilot, and I was being selected to do an experimental test pilot, and I said no, my aim is to become a A1 instructor. So that's how my career path got turned to the right direction, I think. Now, A1 is till date, since the birth of the Air Force in 1932, there are a total of 38 A1s, out of which, yes, there were a few other A1s from the helicopter stream. But starting off from helicopters right at the cadet stage, well, I was the only one who became an A1 instructor. And what do you get if you are an A1? Nothing but professional satisfaction. And that's what the aim was. And I did that. And it's been great being an instructor, I must say. And you really feel great when your students rise to 3-star ranks, and it's a lot of satisfaction that you get.
Sir, of course, of course. You know, I still remember in academy when we were as cadets, it was like अगर जेम्स बॉन्ड के आगे कोई है तो हमारा डीएस है, हमारा इंस्ट्रक्टर है, और कोई नहीं है इसके आगे. So absolutely, sir, we totally idolize our instructors. So you have been decorated with the Vayu Seva Medal. Could you tell us where it was and which year it was, sir?
Okay. Um, you see, what happened is 1986 was a landmark year for my career. In 1986, Army Aviation Corps was formed. So the news went around that most likely, most, if not all, the helicopters will go to the Army. And we helicopter pilots will become surplus and will not have much of a career left. And what a coincidence, the same year, Pavan Hans was formed. So we were given an option, and I was in fact advised that look, better if you go join Pavan Hans, there is a career there too, you can pick up, and they really want experienced Air Force pilots to join because it's a new organization coming up. And so I then joined Pavan Hans initially on deputation for 2 years and then got absorbed. Now, during this deputation period, we had this Westland 30, which was I would say basically it was ahead of its time, and it had lots of design problems. And we had to deal with all that. Almost every flight, there would be an emergency. And the pilots had to work hard to control the aircraft and bring it back. So that's where I think the real challenges came up, and there was a case of a runway engine. Now this is a very peculiar thing that happens. The engine is controlled by a computer. When the computer misbehaves, the engine runs wild. It goes up and down, and it's very difficult to control. And right in the beginning, when I was training the first Indian pilot on the Westland 30, such an emergency happened at a very critical stage, and we came back safe. Well, that's it. That's how my name was recommended for a Vayu Sena medal, and
That is
that's how.
so commendable, sir. We are so proud of you.
Yes,
So
that's so.
you decided to put your both your sons in, I would say, I would call it the best school in the country, actually. And What was the decision? I mean, was it when you were ever in Wellington, in Staff College? How did you decide to put your sons to Lawrence School, Lovedale, sir?
Well, one decision was there that they should go to boarding school, definitely. And I did not go to a boarding school myself. I went to NDA. But I thought somehow boarding school makes you stand on your feet. And there are lots of qualities that you pick up. You can only do it in a boarding school. And then lots of my colleagues, course-mates, their children were in Lovedale. So that was a natural choice. And it so turned out that they got admission. And sometimes we used to feel bad, oh, why did you do this, send the children away and all. But now when we think back and I talk to my sons, both of them say that was one of the best decisions you took in sending us to boarding school, to
The
Lovedale.
alumni of Lawrence School, Lovedale, they swear by the dear brothers' names. I mean, Siddharth and Gautam both are like, I don't know how they're such loving boys, both of them. And why such dear friend of mine, sir, such dear friend of mine.
I
So
know.
which year did you hang up your uniform and your journey after hanging up the Air Force uniform, sir?
Okay, as I said, I joined Pavanans in 1986, and that time I had less than 18 years of service. So I said, I was called to air headquarters by the AOP, 3 star, that look, we think for you it is best to go to Pavanans. I said, sir, I don't want to be ex Air Force, I want to be retired Air Force. And I was a squad leader, and my promotion board was just coming up. So I was told, look, if you go on deputation, you'll lose out on seniority in Pavanans. But if you go straight away on absorption, you'll be senior, you'll pick up a career. I said, no, sir, I would like to get my rank and go. So I went on deputation 2 years and then got absorbed in Pavanans. And then, well, I must say, adjusting to civil life at that stage was rather difficult. Starting from flying to other work, and I was in charge of operations and training and safety in the Westland 30 fleet, and it was quite difficult to adjust. So then, after another 3 years, the whole Westland fleet had to be grounded there. The Indian government just withdrew the certificate of airworthiness because there were so many emergencies, and the manufacturer even couldn't help solve the problem. And when the fleet was grounded, there was a high level committee which inquired about it. And in the comments, they wrote, hats off to the pilots and engineers who managed to fly for 5 years. So when the fleet got grounded once again, there I was sitting as somebody very surplus in an organization, not knowing what to do. So I left Pavanans and I went over to Malaysia. I worked there for 3 years, learned a lot. That is the main thing. That is one, I think, quality I picked up in the Air Force, continue learning. So I was exposed to international level operations and then returned back to India. And I decided, okay, let me not work for a while, take a break. And I formed a company of my own. And I started doing consultancy on helicopter operations. A few Indian companies were set up where I was the consultant. And then I was called by Ericsson to Sweden. They were thinking of coming in a very big way, putting up cell phone towers. And they wanted to know how is it in India? Can we do it with helicopters? So I went to Sweden for a while, made their operations manuals and things like that. But then Bell Helicopter had set up an office in Delhi and they approached me, why don't you join us? So after saying no, no for a while, then I realized, yes, it's good work culture in this company. So I joined Bell Helicopter. And 1 year I was the number two in the organization in India. And there was an American gentleman who left after 1 year, so I became the MD. For the next 20 years, I was in Bell Helicopters. And well, the main job was selling helicopters in 6 countries in South Asia. But other than that, I managed to convince Bell to start sourcing products from India. So initially, people thought, well, India making aviation grade products, is it possible? But then, yes, managed to convince them, and then there were high level meetings, visits, and then there is a private company in Bangalore which qualified to make components for us. So, one of our leading popular helicopters, the Bell 407, to make the fuselage with 407, there were 56 suppliers in Mexico and US and Canada. We canceled all those contracts and a single contract with this company, Dynamatics, in Bangalore. And they made all the components and assembled the fuselage and they sell it and send it back to us. So I think that was a great thing that happened during my tenure.
So, would I be right in understanding that you finally hung up your Air Force uniform in 1988, which means if you joined Pavan Hans in 1986 and you were on deputation for 2 years with them, so 1988 was the time when you hung up your Air Force uniform.
That's right. Yes.
All right, sir. So, which means you were 1970 commissioned, or before that,
Well, 69 December commission,
69
and
December.
normally one has to have 20 years of service to get pension. But
Sir.
in this special case, there were a few of us who had less than 20 years of service, but we were given the benefit of full pension.
That is so nice, sir. So where were you in 1971 when the India-Pakistan war broke out?
Okay, I was posted to a Me 4 unit in Bareilly, and that is in soon after my commissioning. And middle of 71, our unit moved to Jodhpur. And though it was not spoken, we knew why we were moving. We were getting ready for operations in the desert front. We did some training where at night we had to put our instrument flying hoods. That is, you don't see anything outside you. You only look at the instruments and fly in instruments and sharpen your navigation skills. So if the Indian Army says, okay, take us to a spot so and so, which may be across the border, and you drop us there, we should be able to do that with a high degree of accuracy. So we trained on all that, and we were ready. And sure enough, on 3rd of December, amongst many other airfields, Jodhpur too was attacked. And next morning, all of us flew out to different locations with one helicopter each. There was 11 div, 12 div, and there was a brigade in the Ran of Kutch. Our helicopters went and operated closely supporting the army. In the front area, the army initially in intelligence reports were there that there is an old railway line, the famous Hyderabad railway line, Hyderabad Sindh. But when the army moved across, there was no railway line. It was old tracks which had been removed. So transportation was a problem. We supplied water and ammunition to the frontline troops. So that was quite an interesting phase where, and today,
So
mind
you
you,
have so you have
sorry,
truly been a hero in real life, sir. Truly been a hero in real life.
no,
You come from such an illustrious family, sir. Your brother is Brigadier KP Singh Dio. In fact, he was a former MP as well. And, sir, truly, you have served the nation not only being in uniform, but when you hung up your boots as well, sir. We sincerely thank you for your service and thank you for all that you have done, sir. So, thank you very much. And, sir, before we part ways, before I say goodnight to you, and any last message you would like to give out to the youth of our country, sir?
yes. One thing I would like to say is yes, it's a great, great career to be in the armed forces. What you learn in the armed forces, you cannot learn anywhere else. You become a better human being, excellent career, and adventure is there. So one should opt for the armed forces. And yes, there are only, like the other day I read, NDA percentage of people getting in is 0.015%. Chances are so bleak. Anyway, if you don't get NDA or armed forces, learn to love your profession. That is the key to success in any field. If you don't like what you are doing, if you don't love what you are doing, you will never do well. So my advice will be, whatever comes your way, learn to love your profession.
That's a very profound message, sir. So sincerely, thank you for your time and Good night to you, sir. Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind.